Welcome to the Ministry Mix podcast, where we're bringing you real conversations for the souls and strategies of ministry leaders. I'm Phil Gifford, and I'm joined by my co-host, Richard Pope. Hello! Whether you're a seasoned pastor or ministry leader or just stepping into leadership for the first time, we're here to share stories, insights, and practical tips to help you lead strategically while caring for your souls. In each episode, we'll dive into topics that matter to your mission, your calling, and your own personal growth. Don't think we should record after eating lunch because I can't even say co-host today.
We just ate some incredible jerk wings from Caribbean Flavor in Salisbury.
Oh, so good.
Such a favorite. Well, today we're talking about lessons Phil and I have learned. I'm going to give him a break from talking while he digests. We're going to talk about 6 lessons from homeless churches. And just a question to start our time today is this. What do you do when your church suddenly loses its location? In other words, you have nowhere to meet. Phil, you have tons of experience. This is like your church's whole story.
I don't know why this has been our story, but there have been 3 occasions where we have lost our facility.
Yeah.
And so like the first one was really was COVID. Because right. I remember 2020, we were probably a 2.5-year-old church plant at the time. So just starting to get momentum, just starting to get people to see us in the community. And then all of a sudden we're seeing news about this virus. And I remember I was meeting a guy for discipleship at a Panera Bread, and he was a little late getting there, or maybe I stayed a little late. But I remember having a conversation like, what would happen if we couldn't meet for church because of this virus? Like, it's happening in other countries, like things are shutting down. And I was like, we joked, we're like, haha, that would never happen. They'd never, like, we would never not be able to meet for church. That'll never be us. This is like early March 2020. Right. Like, that'll never be us. So I scribbled out like what church would look like if we couldn't meet. But yeah, it ended up being for 3 months. I think we obviously met in a school, and they shut public schools down so fast. And then met in parking lots for a little while, but we had to figure out some stuff. And then of course we went back to the school about 2 years after that. We met at another location temporarily, but once things settled down,
I actually preached in that other location.
Yeah, you did the ballroom, the Richland ballroom. Yeah, that business is closed now, but
I saw the for sale sign.
Yeah, I don't think it's for sale, but it's definitely not being used. But
when I drove by it, there was like a sign, maybe it was like a real estate sign.
Gotcha.
You should buy it.
Well, it's kind of a truck stop. It's not my favorite
it's
location.
literally a truck stop with a Dunkin' Donuts.
We share, Dunkin' Donuts in the middle, Waffle House and Denny's, which I'm actually kind of cool with, but it's definitely 95 next to Ramada.
That was a sexy location, bro.
It was a great place for a season, and so I'm going to let somebody else have that. But yeah, we met there for a little while. We went back to the school, and our school every summer, it's had massive air conditioning issues. Like we would start meeting, like one was planned. They're like, hey, for 3 weeks, we're going to have you guys out of the building because we're replacing our air conditioning. So we're like, fine. At least we had warning, right? We had a warning for 3 weeks. You can't meet here this summer. This last summer, something happened where it just wasn't working. And they're like, liability wise, it wasn't even working. It was working okay, but it was like maybe mid 80s inside the building. So
you were meeting.
Yeah, we met for one Sunday. We're like, this
hot.
is like, I complained. This is what I get. I couldn't complain. It's like, hey, any way we can turn the air conditioning down? I'm like, oh wait, it's not working. And so they kicked us out because like we just can't liability wise have a large group meeting without air conditioning that's working. So we every week they kept on telling us that, oh, it'll be fixed next weekend. It'll be fixed next weekend.
Right.
And so like Monday, we're like, great, we're going back. It's going to be awesome. But then on Thursday, they're like, just kidding. Something else is still broken. So for 5 weeks straight, we did not know we were a meeting. And this all hit right at a time when our church was actually really growing. And every single week, new people were showing up.
You guys grew by like 40, 50%.
Yeah,
in that season. 50%
during that season.
Yeah.
So it's like every week people were visiting us. So which we're going to talk about that as we go in this episode. But like we didn't want to just shut down and be like, well, we wanted to really be like, we wanted to steward that God was sending us people. And so we were convicted. We just need to find a way to do this well. So it was an interesting situation. It definitely messes with your brain.
Yeah.
When you break consistency. So we were a homeless church this summer, last summer, and then during COVID.
Wow.
You guys had a similar situation happen, but not quite so similar.
Yeah. So our church is like half the age of your church.
Yeah.
You guys are 7 years?
Yeah, we're 7 years.
So we're 3.5. We'll be 4 in April. We met originally That's the jerk chicken again.
Yeah, it is.
So good. Caribbean flavor. Good.
It was worth it.
Yeah. So we originally met in this like 2,000 square foot facility. During COVID, we launched in COVID, and no one would rent to us. Schools wouldn't let us in. Portable spaces weren't a thing. So we rented this like really kind of crummy 2,000 square foot facility next to a barbershop. We met there, outgrew that. We moved to this historical center just to honor them. I won't go into too many details about who they are, but they were, it's this historical facility in our city, was a church, was the original church building, was now a fellowship hall. And on top of that fellowship hall, they built a larger sanctuary in like the 1880s. And we were meeting in that upstairs sanctuary, kids ministry downstairs. And it was working. We were growing. We were actually planning to go to 2 services, October 1st of 2024. Like we were preparing.
You were there for a long-term partnership.
We were there for 2 years. Before we left. We were actually there longer than our original location. Over half of our church's journey was there. And yeah, we had poured in money. And honestly, it was frustrating for us because we had done everything that they tell you to do to build a partnership as a church, like double. I mean, we were doing all the things. So you
were maintaining their building. You were like repairing things. You were providing supplies. You were a great partner.
Getting business for them because they rent out that downstairs for parties, and a lot of the people renting it were from our church. Yeah, and the building was kind of in disrepair. Honestly, it's a blessing, I think, long term. We're still in the middle of that journey, but yeah, it was second to last Sunday in September. They told us on that Thursday. So there's 2 Sundays left, 5 Sunday a month. They say, hey, can't meet here anymore. We already paid September's rent, so we're like, we're just going to meet. Second to last Sunday of September, we told the church, and we just had time of prayer and worship. And then after coming out of that, Monday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, we did what we call altar nights at Canvas.
Yeah.
Phil's the day we're recording this, Phil's actually speaking at an altar night we're doing tonight in our city. But yeah, it's just a time of prayer and worship. We pray through the scripture, we sing songs, no microphones. People sit in a really tight circle, kind of claustrophobic almost, but it's just high energy, excitement, prayer. We had 150 people gather that week in prayer and worship, which was incredible. But we just committed to praying, and then by the next Sunday, the last Sunday there, where we were packing everything into a U-Haul because we had a bunch of equipment there, God had already provided another space. So now, currently, while we're recording this, we're meeting in a homeless center in our city, which is really kind of a cool story. So we started reaching homeless people.
Yeah.
At yep, I said it. Well, you don't know what it is. Yeah, we're not going to edit that out. We started reaching people there, and that was a large part of why they didn't want us to meet there anymore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy that we start reaching homeless people. God then provides a space for us when we get kicked out for reaching them in a homeless shelter. And if you look at our Instagram, our homeless shelter looks really nice. Like,
yeah, it doesn't look like nice facility.
Halo is an organization. They've been great. They've loved us well. They've provided for us. Don't want anything in return. Just want us to love people.
Yeah.
So we've already seen guests get baptized since we've been there. So it's been cool.
That's such a cool scenario how God has provided, like, the very ministry God was bringing into your doors provide the next step for your church.
Yeah. And so what Phil and I are going to do, I'm going to use that as a transition. We're going to each share a lesson. We'll go back and forth. But what you just said, Phil, literally is like my first lesson. Frenzy can lead to dependence if you model it.
That's good.
What I mean by that is this. It's crazy. When your church finds out you're losing a building, it's crazy. We're trying to figure out where do we put 150, 175 people. The larger your church gets, I
the
think,
more difficult it is. Yep.
Yeah. And when my church was like 30, when we first launched, I'd have been like,
just need my living room.
Yeah. But I would have assumed it was bigger. The bigger was easier. It's honestly harder, but we realized very quickly as pastors, we're elder led at our church. We had 2 options. We could either be dependent or we could just like be hectic. So our response was prayer. What's really cool is I would say our church is praying more, singing louder, believing more, trusting more. I honestly think that this last month and a half has built, because for us, this last month and a half is super still current, has really built our church's faith. But there's 2 things. If the frenzy came and we were frenzy, then it would have just been a mess. But I really think that as leaders, ministry leaders, not just pastors, when things go bad, not just losing a building, you have the opportunity to model Christ-like dependence on the Father. And if you do, I think your people will pick up on that and follow through on it. Yeah,
it's a forced dependency moment.
Right.
And you're just like, hey, God, if you don't provide a place for us to worship, we're going to figure it out. Yeah. But like, we're desperate for you to show up and provide where we need to be. But yeah, you at the same time, you were dependent, but we're friends and we're talking through this whole process. You're calling me going, dude, what do I do?
Yeah, it was terrifying.
So yeah, you were freaking out. But you were also working hard. So you were trying to find a place. Like you weren't just idle, like you weren't just in this office going, well, God, hope you provide for us. You were out there calling places, looking at places, putting videos on Facebook.
Well, what's interesting, so this is like a weird part of the story. We never called anybody. We just put videos on Facebook. Yep. We prayed. We told our people to call people. Yeah. Our staff called people.
Gotcha.
But I told our leaders, I was like, hey, I lean towards anxiety. And this is making me very anxious. So I'm just not going to do anything but lead our people to pray. And I'll let you guys do the rest. And not in like a dismissive, I don't want to be a part of this way. I just trusted the leaders that I had around me to do what they're good at. And we use the phrase desperate prayer to a holy God.
That's good.
We're just going to pray desperately to a holy God that loves us and cares. And I think out of that, our people will probably pray more frequently, like more passionately, more frequently, more readily, because they're like, oh, it worked for the church, so maybe it'll work for me.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good lesson, that frenzy can lead to dependency if you model it. Lessons from a homeless church. I'll give you one of ours. One of the things I think that when we found ourselves homeless, it really forced us to think about our actual identity as a church. Because like, so much of your church identity, your ministry identity is fixated on where you meet. When people picture your church, they probably picture your building.
Correct.
Like when you think about X, Y, and Z church, you picture or you see the outside of the building. If you ask any church, any person in your community, when they tell me about FBC, whatever, First Baptist Church, this or this community church, they, in their mind, they'll tell you, oh, they meet over, their location is over on this street. So much of
or people say, do you want to meet at the church?
Yes, exactly. Meet at the building. So much of your identity as a church locks into that geographical location where you do Sunday. And so we know biblically that's just not overly healthy. That's not an overly healthy definition of the church, because it's really making the church a place and not the people that make up the church. So when you don't have a building anymore, you are forced to think about who your church actually is and what your church actually is. So like, I just think that's super important to kind of realize that the people are what makes our church. So it pushes us, because we tend to, as ministry leaders, lead toward that definition of come on Sunday, come here. Here's our social media posts from our church services.
Right.
Like when you're meeting in during the homeless seasons, especially these last 2 summers, we met outside the entire summer. Like we just because you just can't get a facility to go inside last minute. Like this is not in our county. There is no like call on Friday and you have a place on Sunday to meet. We were just like, grab your lawn chairs and meet at this playground. Grab your cars and let's circle up in this parking lot. And so, man, we had 90 people some Sunday morning in the middle of July.
So good.
Circling up in chairs around a playground with one little speaker, like just an acoustic guitar speaker, just to make my mic big. And we just talked. We prayed together. We read the Bible together. We worshiped together. But there was no fluff. And it's like, I mean, the people of the church gathered was what was important, not the actual location. So it was really healthy for our church to get that picture.
Yeah. No, that's so good. One of the things I've loved from watching you guys in your regular journey, you guys are regularly homeless.
Yeah, we are. We're like those people that just keep coming back like, I'm homeless again. Yep.
Yeah. But what I've loved watching is the way you guys have just, and honestly, it was encouraging for me in our journey. You guys just adjusted, because yours was in the summer, and literally you guys are back into your building and like the next week it's like, I'm out of my building.
It was.
Bye-bye.
It was like as soon as we got like celebrating our building, I'm pretty sure that Sunday we were talking and you're like, yeah, we just got, close to.
And both of us were growing pretty radically. So like it was kind of unique the way that happened all at the same time. Here's another lesson that we learned that kind of goes in lines with some of what you just said. I believe that trimming the fat often leads to growth. Mm-hmm. There's a thing, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Mm-hmm. For us, we're meeting right now at the homeless shelter. We're super grateful. I just kicked the table by accident. You probably heard that, listener. We're meeting at a homeless shelter. They've been so great. It's a wonderful facility. Mm-hmm. But we're not doing as much as we used to.
Yeah.
We're not putting as many signs. We're just, because we don't. It's just for the short term. We don't know where we're going to be long term.
Yeah. So you're still kind of homeless. Like you're
couch surfing, bro.
Yeah. There you go. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. But what's so unique? It's so interesting being homeless in a homeless church and a homeless facility. But what's so unique is like we're growing, and our leaders are incredible things. We have a girl who works for us, Katie. She's our creative director, college student. We baptized her. She just led someone to Jesus. And this Sunday, the Sunday after we were recording this podcast, she's baptizing them. And I'm not saying that's happened because of us being homeless, but what I will say is, like, there's so much less to do that our people are just spending more time doing gospel.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, you shouldn't set up signs, and I'm all for signage and culture and branding. I think those things are healthy for ministries, but there's also this sweet spot. And I think we're kind of finding it right now. Like, hey, we're just going to put one sign up and it's going to be fine. And we're going to throw out an A-frame, and there might not be a tablecloth on every table.
Yeah.
Don't dismiss excellency, but when you trim the fat, if your people are faithful, they're going to replace that time. So instead of coming an hour early and setting up, we have people going around and inviting all the people from the homeless shelter into the church.
That's so good.
So we've baptized, I think, 6 homeless people in the last few weeks.
Yeah, God's opened that door for real ministry. Well, and when you think about it, you two things that jump to my mind from that is, when as church planters, we're used to walking into a facility going, here's how we would build out our equipment. Here's how we would build out our signages to help the flow.
To make it feel like us.
And there's whole companies that you can make it feel like us. Like
portable churches.
You can help to do this. And so like, you're saying that you're just like, we're not in that season right now. We're just doing church.
Right.
I think that's a healthy reminder for your people.
Yeah. And I feel like when we do have a facility, we're praying one day for a permanent facility. Yeah, I feel like our people will be more receptive to a bad-looking thing. People are so consumeristic, and I believe in pursuing excellency and displaying, through creativeness, and like I'm all for that signage and things looking good. But I do think our people will be more willing now to just be like, doesn't matter, which I think is healthy. Like I feel like it's kind of rubbed the consumerism away. So.
Trim the fat.
Trim the fat, or keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. And this is not one of our points, so I'm gonna do like kind of like a half point here. Yeah. But you've mentioned something that I think is important to highlight. Like, we were both in seasons of growth. Yeah. When we went homeless, especially this last time for us and this most recent time for you. And I think one of the most discouraging parts for us, and we talked about this, like I was discouraged and I was freaking out, and you were the same way because we were growing.
Right.
And it's almost like,
how do you keep the energy?
Yeah. How do you keep the energy? Where are the visitors going to go? Is somebody going to show up and not know what to do? And I'm like, how small-minded of me as a leader is that thinking that like, oh man, God's going to stop growing our church because of this. Like, that's so,
you read the early church.
Yeah.
Book of Acts. It's so convicting.
That's so either consumeristic or our product's not going to be as good. That's so consumeristic driven. God can grow the church, and he did, in playgrounds and parks, and with this weird mess. And I will say this is actually, I'm going to go to my third point and skip some notes around. I'll come back and do the second one. It actually ended up strengthening our church's witness. Because the community, like we have a lot of people in our community that look at our church through social media. And so every week we're posting pictures of us outside in playgrounds or just doing, and they're watching this because we're saying, hey, stay tuned for an announcement of where church is on this day. So the community is watching us. And what someone actually told me, your church takes worship seriously. And it was just gathering became less convenient. And so it made it more important in people's eyes. And so that was a good witness to the community.
That's a word.
You like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say your 2 of yours kind of go together. So I'll jump in the middle real quick with this one, and then Phil is going to bring us home. The third lesson, and this is one that I think I wasn't ready for, it reveals the health of your fellowship.
Right.
And I don't mean just of people gathering. I mean literally the fellowship of your church. When we moved from, where we were highest regular Sunday attendance we had ever seen first 3 weeks in September. I mean, it was, and really July all the way till that first 3 weeks of September, we moved and we lost like 10, 15 people, it was just suddenly, maybe 20 some weeks. And now we've met there consistently. They're coming back. But one of the things I realized is our bought in people, we didn't have to help them get there, convince them to get there. They're like, where my church is, I am. And the people who were more on the outside of the fellowship, I can't remember who says, but they said church is like a 3-ring circus. The innermost ring is your members. The second ring is your regular attenders. And the third ring are your well-wishers. They come by once a month just to say hi. Nowadays, you would call that a regular attender, once a month attendance.
Right.
But for us, we realized that those once a monthers and really some of those regular attenders they stopped attending us frequently, which in a weird way, I think it was a healthy thing for us. We found out who was really committed and bought into our church, but it also gave us as pastors. So we have 5 pastors who lead our church together. We were like, okay, so these are the list of people. We know they've not been here very frequently. You actually told us to do this, and we reached out to all of them, and we're just like, hey, we miss you. Where have you been? What's going on? And it kind of gave us really good discipleship conversations with those people.
Yeah.
Why have you been at church? Well, things were weird. I was going to wait till everything kind of got normal again. Why?
Yeah.
So for us, it revealed
normal.
Right. It revealed the health of the people we were reaching, and the people in our church, which was, what I think that, as someone with cancer, they say it can be really scary to go get tested when you have a tumor, because it's easier not to know that you're sick.
Yeah.
But when you don't know you're sick, you die. And when you know you're sick, you can treat it. So for us, our congregation, I would say, is overall healthy. I think losing 10% of your regular attendance when you change facilities suddenly is probably not that bad. But for us, we really value community. We really value discipleship. We were like, okay, we need to go after these people. So, man, when you lose your building, you will find out what is good and not good about your church.
Yeah.
Instantly, I think.
That's good. And we did the same. Like we did that. That's why I suggested to you during COVID. I
took it from you.
Yeah, we broke down our entire regular attenders and kind of split them up into groups and teams, and basically said, hey, during COVID when we're watching online, like I don't have any mechanism to see people's face to face, and so it was. I want to make sure that like once a month at minimum, but every other week for sure, we want to be reaching out to people so that way our leaders are texting. So. And then that same thing this summer, we just tracked who was showing up at the park, who wasn't. And that way, if we didn't see somebody, a 3-minute phone call to say, hey, we missed you at the park. I know it's not as convenient, but we missed you. It really does. If I had to make another sub point.
Okay, Professor.
I know. As a ministry leader, you can't lead the same when you're homeless as you did when you were in your building. Like you've got to be super intentional. And I will say this too. Not everybody listening to our podcast has a portable church like we do.
Yeah.
But just because you're in a regular church building doesn't mean there aren't seasons where something breaks or you something happens and you can't meet in there. So like,
can I actually disagree with you?
Sure.
I think that you should always be that intentional.
I agree. A different kind of intentionality.
I agree you need to lead differently, but I do think, man, what would happen if we always let our church
like that level of intensity?
Yeah, which is really the work of the if you're a pastor, that's the work of the pastor, teaching and prayer. I just not so much a disagreement, but I will say, like for me, it pointed out areas in our leadership, especially as a staff, where I was like, we need to just do this better overall. Like we shouldn't wait till this happened to do this well. You know what I mean?
I will actually agree with that because the way we cared over the summer for our people, the way we cared for these people over the summer is the way we're caring for people now. So like it's really been
like the new norm.
Yeah. So like why are we not doing this every week to see because we want to make sure everybody doesn't, like if someone's missing for a couple of weeks, we send a text like, hey, we don't want to be weird. And we're definitely not stalking you, but we just want you to know you're missed and we 100%. Love you we love having you a part of our church. Why not do that every week?
If the church is the people and our calling is to the people, not the building, not the service, it's to the people.
Yep.
That was like a realization for me. I was like, oh, wow. It doesn't matter how great my services are, how well they flow, how good worship is, how good the preaching is, if they're not here.
Yeah. I will, my third official lesson.
Fifth lesson.
Yeah. You know me, good old pastor adding points.
Professor.
I think there was something healthy about doing church actually outside.
So good.
It felt.
For you.
I sweat a lot. I don't know if I should be outside ever in the summer. Like I had to be very strategic with my t-shirt choice.
Extra deodorant, baby.
Yeah, it goes. There's a special kind of sweet fellowship. The aroma of Christ. The aroma of Christ looked a little different in our church that season. Yeah, but like I don't know. There's something about being outside. I like worship outside. I like worship at parks because we actually notice that people. When you're putting on, church can become so quickly like a production.
Yes.
It starts at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock with a countdown video and then an opening big song and then formulatic. So what am I trying to say? Word?
Formumatic?
There we go. Yeah. It's just a formula like, hey, big song, then soft song, then preaching, then invitation, then closing. Yeah. And so people come to a package in some ways. But when you strip all of that stuff away and you're outside at a playground, we noticed that people actually came earlier and stayed later. Now we did some strategic things, like we brought a snow cone machine in and we brought iced coffee in, and so like we did some things to aid felt. But our church actually relationally, was stronger in the summer than they are even now, because people just stayed and talked to each other. So super helpful season for us. So it stinks when you lose your building. Like, it's not like those aren't the calls you want. But man, if you lead, and you mentioned in your first point, find yourself dependent on God with a healthy picture of the church, it can be a very good season.
Yeah, I agree. Well, hey, ministry leader, as you think about what we've learned from our church losing our building, maybe you've never experienced that, but you could. Just a few questions for you to think through. What would your church do if you lost a building?
Yeah.
What would happen? How would your church respond? And by church, we don't mean the building because it doesn't have feelings. How would the people react if suddenly the building wasn't there? How would you have to lead differently? Mm-hmm. And then just to kind of what Professor Phil's subpoint, Dr. Phil, man, should you be leading that way now? Like, is there places where your intentionality wouldn't hold up without the building? Because if the building is a tool, that's great. But man, if the building is what you're depending on for intentionality, that might be a problem. And then lastly, what cool things could God teach you in that season? So just to flip the idea, if your church lost their building, what could God teach you? What could God improve? And then I'm going to leave with this. Why not make those changes now?
Yeah.
Be stronger and healthier, and the building all of a sudden isn't the place you go to just because it's the show. The building is the place where the people, the actual church, goes to gather.
So I hope you're encouraged listening to this episode, because even losing the church, God was building his church. Even though losing a church building, God was building his church.
A word.
So that's what I took away. God does not need it. So, hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ministry Mix. If you found value in today's discussion, make sure you subscribe. We don't want you to miss an episode. And if you've got questions or topics you'd like for us to talk about, we'd love to hear from you. You can join us on social media. You can send us some emails. You can talk to us. Just let us know and we can engage with you. We'd love it if you'd leave us a review, because your review helps us to better connect with leaders just like you. So until next time, keep leading with purpose and caring for your soul.
Bye.